Introducing first, in the black and green, or blue, or whatever, is Roma. Weighing in at full ATX form factor and the current reigning champ. And the challenger in black and red is the underdog from among the best, Marjorie. The best of the RATS.
What's up, guys? Andrew here again with East Coast Tech. A few weeks ago, I walked you through a PC build I did with an old Intel 4690K, and I wanted to do a follow-up on how well it performs against my Intel Core i5-6600K build. So with any good experiment, we'll begin with a question. In this case, how well does Haswell compare to Skylake? Then an educated guess. Haswell will lose to Skylake. Yeah, that's a good one. Next up is to set up the variables. In this case, they will be the 4690K and the 6600K respectively. What's interesting about these two processors is that they are both quad-core chips without hyper-threading, and they operate at the same exact stock speed, 3.5 GHz. These similarities make them perfect for our experiment. After that, we set up the controls. The controls are the part of experiments that do not change between the two variables. In this case, we'll be running the same exact tests. We'll be running the CPUs at the same frequency overclocked to 4.2 GHz. And we'll be using the same CPU cooler. The CPU cooler of choice is Corsair's H100i, a 240mm AIO liquid cooling unit. And the tests I ran include Cinebench, NovaBench, and a new test I read about called Geekbench. I also use CPU-Z's multi-thread stress test just to check the temperatures of our CPUs under load. Now let's get into the meat and potatoes. The first test up is Cinebench. The 6600K pulls ahead of the 4690K by only 10 points, which is only a 1.5% improvement and is kinda disconcerting. Skylake wins this round, but not by much. Better results, coming in with a score of 2139, and the Skylake 6600K pulls ahead of the Haswell 4690K score of 1883. This is a 12% increase over the older generation, and this result was more in line with what I was expecting to see. And for our third test, Geekbench, we get two scores, one for single-core performance and one for multi-core performance. For the single-core score, the 6600 somehow loses to the 4690K at a 6% loss, and for the multi-core score, it loses again, but this time a 20% difference in its performance versus Haswell. With the final score being 2-1 in favor of Skylake, we can now draw our conclusions. With the exception of the Geekbench tests, which I'll admit make me scratch my head a little bit, Skylake clearly wins over Haswell, but as far as benchmarking goes, it's almost negligible unless we're talking about thermals. Skylake dominated Haswell in this field with an idle temperature of only 20 degrees Celsius in an 18 degrees Celsius room, versus Haswell's idle temp of 29 degrees Celsius. Under load, we see even more of a difference, with Skylake hovering at around 45 degrees C under load, and Haswell sitting at a toasty 63 degrees. That's medium rare temperature, folks. So harkening back to my original question, how well does Haswell compare to Skylake? The answer is around 10%, taking an average of our performance percentages, which is ironically what Intel claims to be improving their CPU architecture by anyway. So has Intel really improved? If we look at Haswell's predecessor, Ivy Bridge, they both have a 22nm CPU die, and Haswell brought a much needed improvement to the integrated graphics. In the jump from Haswell to Skylake, Intel started with a 14nm process on their chip dies, but the integrated graphics were mostly unchanged. There were, however, significant improvements in thermal, so I will give them that. All in all, if you're wondering whether you should be upgrading your system, you're probably fine. If you don't, Kaby Lake is said to improve further on Skylake, but from what I've seen from other reviews, a Haswell chip is still competitive in today's market. And considering the 4690K is the same price as the 6600K, I'd say to save your cash for what Intel has coming up next, or AMD. Thanks for watching, guys. If you want to see more content, get subscribed. If you love this video, give it a like. If you hated it, dislike it. As always, I'm Andrew with East Coast Tech, and I'll see you in the next one.